Hey guys, and welcome back to the Glitz and Gore channel. How are we all doing today? So we are back. We are back with another YouTube video, and today we're doing a film, kind of like it's not necessarily a film commentary video, it's a analysis of a certain film company, and that film company in question is Disney. So today we're going to explore why Disney needs to stop doing live action remakes. Now, I feel like with Disney, they're a very big film company, as you know. I think everyone knows that by now. They own a lot of different companies. They own Pixar, Marvel. I think they also own the National Geographic channel, whatever it's called. They do films. They've got loads of theme parks. Everywhere you go, you'll find something that's Disney related. Disney has its up and downs, just like every other company. They started off doing little animated shorts. They released their first ever full-length feature animation film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Did a bunch of classics, and then they started to go into like a little bit of a rut, and that's when the Disney Renaissance happened, which boomed them to success. This is why we've got like all the Disney parks, we've got Disney princesses, all of that goodness. I feel like also around the 2000s they were in a little bit of a rut. Their films were not just as hitting as good as like the Disney Renaissance films. They were trying different animation styles. They were trying with 3D. I could be wrong on this one. I should have done my research on this little part. But I think Chicken Little was their first like CGI, not CGI, 3D animated film, and it wasn't the greatest. Around this time they also tried to pick up a bit more money by doing straight to DVD sequels, like The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. That's my personal favourite one. Another personal favourite is The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, all of that goodness. And then they got back into the gist of it in the 2010s, when Frozen came out. And now I feel like, in my opinion, they're starting to get into a little bit of a rut again. They're doing sequels to all their best 2010s films, such as Moana, Frozen. I think they're also doing a Zootopia sequel that's coming out. But now they've got into a strategy of doing live action remakes. And this has stirred up a lot of talk about Disney, and I thought I'd explore that today. I am going to say there's probably going to be spoilers ahead, but I think with most Disney films, most people have watched them, but there are going to be spoilers ahead if you haven't seen any of the films I'm going to be talking about. And also I'd like to disclaim that there is going to be quite a bit of talk about racism in this film. Unfortunately, especially with the remakes of The Little Mermaid and Snow White, there's been a lot of racist haters out there. So I'm gonna try and approach this topic with the best intentions, the best way that I can. So there's a disclaimer for that. So we're just going to get into it. Right, we are going to get into what live action films Disney has done. Now this actually started back in 1996. Did a couple in 2010, but the big boom of live action remakes began around 2019. We've also got some upcoming and rumoured releases of live action remakes. We've got Lilo and Stitch, Moana, Hercules, Robin Hood, The Aristocats, Bambi and Tangled. So as you can see, there is a lot of live action remakes out there, and there's going to be quite a few more coming up in the future. So with that, there's a lot to talk about. We're gonna get into why I think, in my opinion, Disney are remaking old films and turning them into live action. Remember when I said there was a Disney Renaissance era? There was 10 films in that era that boomed Disney to the company that we know today, pretty much. And 6 out of 10 of those Renaissance films have been made into live action remakes. The Disney Renaissance films were clearly when Disney was at its best. And the early 2000s, like I said, was a rough period. So it looks like they're trying to recapture what they had in their peak, by doing these live action remakes. But by the way, some of these are just my opinion. I don't work at Disney and I don't know anyone else that works at Disney. Most of these are just speculation. Another thing is some of their old classics have got racist or controversial scenes that don't hold up to the modern day. Disney have done two things about this. They've gone onto their streaming platform Disney Plus and they've put disclaimers before these specific films that depict like racist stereotypes and controversial content. And the other is possibly by doing a live action remake. By doing a live action remake, you can switch out the things which don't hold up to the modern day and prove to the public that the values of the Disney company have changed. These can be scenes like from Dumbo, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, The Jungle Book and The Aristocats, all that have been remade or rumoured to be remade with The Aristocats. I'm saying this with best intentions. I really don't mean this in a negative way. This is obviously a positive thing. But Disney is trying to be more inclusive. So what they've done for some of these live action remakes is recasting the leading roles. This includes Halle Bailey in The Little Mermaid and Rachel Zegler in Snow White. There's also been rumours of who's going to be cast as Rapunzel in the live action Tangled remake that is not even begun production yet. These are to be rumoured Avantika Vandanapu. I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing these names. I'm really not good with names. And Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, I think I said that right. But these are still rumoured because there hasn't been a lot of like official news come out about the live action Tangled remake from Disney themselves. And I think this is not the full intention of Disney with these live action remakes, but it has aided them in their field of having more diverse characters, which is honestly a great thing. Because there needs to be more diversity in the film industry anyway. So honestly, in my opinion, good on them. In an article by Screen Rant in 2022, they say that Disney have been doing remakes because of the economy. Already using stories that they've used in the past and been successful with it ensures a profit. They saw the success of the first few remakes such as Alice in Wonderland and Cinderella. And are now running with this strategy. The strategy also works for pre-production by using a story that they've already done instead of making something like from scratch. They also say that they're trying to recreate stories for a new generation to enjoy. So by doing a live action remake, they can like put like learning lessons and values into these live action remakes for the newer generation to grow up with. Just kind of like they did with the films that with our generation that we grew up with. There are also rumours that Disney is trying to protect their copyright on their films. Since Disney, the classic films, especially like the really old ones, they're getting close to their copyright expiration dates. So if they do a live action remake, they can technically extend that copyright date. This may be slightly true for some of the films, but not entirely, since they're in the works of doing a Tangled remake, and I think they're doing a Moana remake. I'm not sure on that one, but that's why I personally think, and why some other people think, Disney are doing all these live action remakes. Now we are getting into why the live action remakes don't work, in my opinion. So this first one, I thought I'd throw this one in because I think it's just quite a fun concept to think about, but I've created my own syndrome, my own diagnosis for this one. And it's called nostalgia syndrome. So nostalgia is a sentimental feeling that you have from something in your past, like a film you grow up with. I grew up with Disney. Back when VHSs were a thing, all the VHSs I had were Disney films. I've been to the Disney parks, I've been to the one in Florida, I've been to the one in Paris. I especially grew up with The Little Mermaid, as that was my favourite Disney movie growing up. My childhood teddy, everyone has a childhood teddy, mine was an Ariel doll, which I'm pretty sure I got from the Magic Kingdom in Florida. And I still have it to this day because I am not getting rid of that. I ain't getting rid of that. A lot of people think with most of the films, maybe not the controversial ones, but like with stuff like The Little Mermaid, Cinderella, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Why remake it if it's not already broken, you know? People want to hold on to the magic that the originals held right here in our hearts. I would say the animation was very innovative for its time, but I think it also still holds up to this day. And the voice acting, most of it was just amazing. They really brought these characters to life, like, you know, like Beauty and the Beast, all the talking furniture. Like, I wouldn't be able to bring a talking lamp to life. So how these guys did it, I don't know, but it was really good. And the character designs and the character arcs just have like they resonate with the viewer. So when the fandom sees a beloved classic that they've loved, especially like from their childhood, from their past, being turned into a live action remake, they get upset. I made a new diagnosis for this. It's called nostalgia syndrome. And basically the concept is, when I thought of this, is like when someone feels so passionately about like something from their past, when they see, for example, Disney turning one of their beloved classics into a live action remake, people feel protective of the classic and they want to protect the nostalgia that they had for that film. I know there was a lot of thing about The Little Mermaid and they were like, this is not my Ariel. I think part of it is because of that nostalgia that the original had with loads of people. But that's just my take on that stance, on the stance of nostalgia. So yeah, nostalgia syndrome. Are you going to diagnose yourself with it? I am going to diagnose myself with it for one film, personally, but we're going to get into that later on in the video. Another point is laziness. It's just a bit lazy. You could definitely put your money towards new stories that no one has seen before. There's definitely like different fairy tales out there that Disney hasn't even touched on. There's like The Princess and the Pea, there's the 12 Dancing Princesses. When I did my research, I honestly thought the 12 Dancing Princesses was made up by Barbie because of the Barbie film. The Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses, but no, it was actually a fairy tale before Mattel got his hands on it. There's things like that they could definitely turn into a new Disney film for younger viewers and still bring the magic to life. But yeah, Disney is just remaking their old stories instead of creating new stories. Disney has said they're trying to make the stories they made in the past work for a new generation. But they could easily do that with a new story as well. And then we have the controversy. There's been loads of controversies around some of these live action remakes. It was obviously with The Little Mermaid. I think, I know everyone knows where I'm going to go with this. When it was announced that Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel in The Little Mermaid, people just went at it. Like, Ariel in the original was a white mermaid with red hair. And Halle Bailey is an African American. And there was a lot of uproar came from the fandom with a lot of racist remarks towards Halle Bailey specifically. And people hashtagging on X, hashtag not my Ariel. It's not my, are you trying to do hashtag not my Roderick again? I remember when there was uproar about recasting Roderick in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but this one is just more racist. She's a talking fish. Ariel is a talking fish. Who the f cares? Disney came out and defended the film by saying they did not cast Bailey because of her ethnicity. They cast her because she was the best to fit that role in terms of acting and singing. There you go, racists. And I'm not saying that's the reason why they shouldn't do live action remakes. I'm just explaining all the controversies that have come from the live action remakes. And this is why people are probably thinking why they're doing live action remakes if all this controversy is just going to come from it and all these racist comments are going to come from recasting a talking fish. I remember when this all came out, it was just really exhausting. So the second controversy came with Mulan. Let me just hydrate myself real quick.
It's important to stay hydrated.
Mulan also had controversy around it at the time of its release. Because at this time, Hong Kong had a new extradition law put in place and it led to government protests and police brutality. And the lead of Mulan, Liu Yifei, I think it is. Sorry, I'm really not good at names. I should have researched this. I'm really sorry. She declared her support to the Hong Kong police during this time, and that really caused the hashtag boycott Mulan. movement online, you know, upcoming and during the film's release. And then the next one, and I think you know what I'm going to talk about, Snow White! There's been a lot of controversy around Snow White, you know, during Disney Expo, to right before the release, to now. So it's been released, I think it was a few days ago, it might have been a week ago, I'm not good with time perception. Even before production, it already started like sparking controversy. I don't know what the right term is now, so I'm gonna use the word dwarf, but I don't mean it in an offensive way. Please, someone in the comments tell me down below what the term I should be using. In the original film, it was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So they're no longer called dwarfs in the remake. Fair enough. And they're not played by actual people. They're CGI. And obviously people had a lot to say about that. And there's obviously going to be a lot of comments about Rachel Zegler because she's Latina and she's playing Snow White. But the most controversy came around was during Disney's Expo in 2023 when Rachel Zegler had loads of comments about the original Snow White film. And I'll say this, the Snow White and the original Snow White was Disney's first full-length feature animated film. Snow White has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it catapulted Disney into this big company now. We wouldn't have this company without Snow White. She had a lot to say about the original film. I think it's in focus here, so I'm just going to stay here. She called the original film dated. She questioned why Snow White fell in love with a guy that stalked her, in quotation marks. And she's really against the original love story part of the film. Yeah, a lot of comments like that which people weren't happy about. I will say it's a vocal stim for me and my boyfriend to just go, weird. Like, that's the only good thing to come out of those comments for me personally. In defense of Rachel Zegler, I believe that she had better intentions than what she actually said in these interviews. I think what she was just trying to say is, in the remake, they didn't want to focus on the love story. They wanted to focus on Snow White's heroism and how she can become into this leader. I think that's what she was trying to say, but it just didn't come out right. And here's the thing as well. There have been, from other film companies that have done a Snow White live action film where Snow White is the heroine in the story, but they also don't shy away from the love story. There was Snow White and the Husband with Kristen Stewart.
Where the hell have you been, Loca?
Miss Miss Twilight Girl. She ended up being this big, strong leader, but she did have a little fling with the Huntsman. And there was also Mirror Mirror, which loads of people have been comparing that film with this Disney remake. That Snow White, she still has a love story. And I think the roles have been reversed. Instead of the prince kissing Snow White to save her, it was actually Snow White that kissed the prince to save him, because he was under this spell that he was in love with the queen, the evil queen. So Snow White saved him instead of the other way around, which was cool. But yeah, I can't remember if she actually ends up with the prince at the end, but they still have like a little fling. I can probably like see the intention was there, but the way that it came across is that she was just on the original Snow White. It left a lot of fans angry. They tried to start another boycott movement. Apparently with all this backlash, Disney had to downscale the European premiere, which happened like a couple of weeks ago. And it's been reported that the film's opening weekend was slow, but it's still doing well at the box office. The reviews are pretty mixed. I've seen all over TikTok, everyone saying why we hated on this film is actually really good. And people are saying that Zegler and Gal Gadot really shine in their role. Whilst others, I think this was the Daily Mail that wrote this, they call it toe curling I can't even say it, toe-curlingly terrible. I haven't watched it yet. I can't form my own opinion on this film because I haven't seen it, and I'm not gonna, you know, just jump on the bandwagon of either saying this film is really good or on it if I haven't seen it. I'm not about that. But yeah, that was all the controversy about some of these live action films, and people are saying, well, if it's bringing this much controversy, why keep doing it? So that's not necessarily my opinion on why I think these live actions don't work. I just think they just need some new material to work with, which might be hard because they've done most of them now. But I know they can. I know they can bring some new material to the table. We will get into this. I'm going to leave this towards the end of the video where I share my thoughts on what I think Disney needs to start doing instead of these live action remakes. Right, I want to be as fair as possible with this commentary. So instead of just saying how many live action remakes that I don't like, I'm also going to give them the benefit of the doubt by saying which live action films I do like. So the first one I'm going to say, and if you watch my other film commentary video, it was ranking non-British actors doing British accents, that video, I specified that I really love a Tim Burton film. So of course the one that I like is Alice in Wonderland. It's not just a retelling, they're bringing something new to the story. It added a darkness to it which really helped like the plot that we're going with the slaying the Jabberwocky and the evil queen's takeover. But it still had its weirdness and whimsical elements to it, which I really enjoyed. Because that's what Alice in Wonderland is all about. I have read the book, it's on my shelf right now. I'm looking at you, Alice. It captivates the weird and wonderful like setting that this film is placed in, but also adds a dark element to it. And I've also shared my love for Johnny Depp, but I honestly think he was made to play the Mad Hatter. He's bonkers enough. I think the only other person that I could see playing the Mad Hatter is Jim Carrey, but that's because he's just whack. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a big fan of the sequel, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and that's really just because I don't like sequels. I might make a different video on why I don't like sequels. I'll leave that topic for another day. But I can also appreciate that they've added more to the story of Alice in Wonderland. They've used another one of the books. I think there was only 2 anyway. But I can appreciate that they've also brought something new to the Alice in Wonderland films that they have already done, instead of just replastering it. And I also like how they kind of aged Alice up, and they did it in a way where it was like the original still exists, where she's a kid and she paints the red roses, she goes to trial about who stole the jam tarts, but now she's older, she's returning, but she doesn't remember that Wonderland exists, and she just thinks it's a dream. She realizes in the end it's not a dream. It was a memory of her past, and her past was the original Alice in Wonderland film. Like, that is great storytelling. And now she's become this heroine of Wonderland. The White Queen gets her crown back, and she slays that Jabberwocky. Someone slay the Jabberwocky. that is one of the films that I do like. That is a live action. I wouldn't even really call it a live action remake. I'm just thinking it's a live action additional story. But that's one of the ones that I really enjoyed. The second film that I really like is Maleficent. I really like this film. Again, because it's something different. It's not just a plaster copy of the original Sleeping Beauty. It's putting it in a different person's perspective. It's putting it in Maleficent's perspective. You can see why she was so angry at the king and the queen, and why she wanted to punish them by cursing their kid. She was the one that the king originally fell in love with, and he betrayed her by cutting off her wings. How dare he? You know what, I'm on Maleficent's side. I'm definitely on Maleficent's side. But also, I know she's a fairy, but in a way, they kind of like humanize her. You know, we can see her actual emotions. You can see why she became the villain. But also, they've changed it so she has a character arc, and then she becomes the hero in the end, which I really like. They also did the same thing with Cruella. In a way, I don't think they necessarily, like, she was the hero of that story, but you can also see that why she kind of became the villain in 101 Dalmatians, if you know what I mean. But they did it so much better in Maleficent, in my opinion. I do like Cruella, to be fair, but if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably go with Maleficent. And the last one we're going to talk about that I really like is Cinderella. I really like this film because it turns the lead characters into more of people. Well, I don't even think the prince said anything. I know he said he became more of a person in the sequels, but who watched the sequels? Yeah, he's now called Kit, and he has an actual personality. We see more chemistry between Kit and Ella before the ball and before their wedding, which is really great, because we see that scene in the forest where Ella's like, don't you kill that stag, I will come after you, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe I like this girl. And I like how now that he's put this ball on to try and find her again, so they could have more interactions, because he's obviously getting pressured to marry a princess, but maybe he's like, no, I wanna marry this farm girl. Bring everyone to the ball. I also like that the mice don't talk. Now, this might be a controversial one for me. People might not agree with this one on, on my side, but I just found the talking mice in the original really annoying. The way they were just like, Cinderella, Cinderella. And yeah, we get more of a backstory with Ella, now Cinderella, and how she was like a really family orientated person before her parents died, and how selfless she is, and how her mother always taught her to be kind and forgiving no matter what. Have courage and be kind. It also proves that you don't need to fight anyone to become the heroine. As in Cinderella, she finally steps up to the evil stepmother at the end when she's, before she gets taken away by the prince. But she stands up to her by saying, I forgive you for what you've done to me. And she just proves you can overcome your problems still with the courage and kindness that you resonate with. You don't need to pick up a sword and slay a... You can just say, I forgive you, bye loser. Those are the films that I really enjoy. And unfortunately, we're gonna get into the ones that I don't like now. Oh well. And I'm probably going to go more into the ones that I don't like. I've just got a lot more opinions about them, let's just say that. So the first one we have is the remake of The Lion King. I don't even think it really qualifies as a live action remake. You're just turning a 2D animated film into a CGI animated film. I can appreciate that they would be able to use actual real life animals to make a proper live action remake, and I'm glad that they didn't, because that's cruelty, and I'm not about cruelty. Absolutely not. I am a cruelty free person, thank you very much. Yeah, here.
Spaghetti back?
Just any flavoured sparkling water, please. Okay. And that was the first appearance of my boyfriend on this account. Getting back to my point, I think one of the only reasons why they did this was to get A-list celebrities on the cast list. Not naming anyone, Beyonce. That's probably not the main reason, but I don't know. I really don't know why they came up with this one and tried to name it a live action remake, but sure. I guess one of the only things that I can appreciate about this film is that they brought back James Earl Jones as Mufasa. Thank you. I cannot hear Mufasa as anyone else, or Darth Vader for that matter. I guess with the 2D animation, the animators could get away with making the faces more expressive, Whereas when you're doing a CGI realistic live action remake, whatever you want to fucking call it, it needs to be obviously more realistic, so you can't get away with those things. The scene I can produce as this for the example, the wildebeest scene where it zooms into Simba's face and you can honestly see the pure terror in Simba's face in the original. He's like, oh shit, I'm about to die. Whereas if you watch the remake, the same exact shot, but because it's realistic, he just doesn't look bothered because you can't really see on a lion's face when they're scared. It's just not impactful for me. Whereas the original, I'm like, Simba's gonna die. And that whole scene in general, the whole sequence, in the original, every time, it might just be because I'm a bit of a sourpuss, but every time I watch it, it makes me cry. It honestly does, from like the music to the animation. The remake, but you know what I'm saying? It doesn't hit hard enough for me. I mean, I guess some of the singing's alright. I kind of liked Seth Rogen as Pumbaa. I think, was it Seth Rogen? It was Seth Rogen. I was right. I know these things. But that was pretty much it. Some of the songs are alright. Seth Rogen, cool. James L. Jones, always a hard slay. James, are you dead? Is he dead? I swear I read that he was dead. Yeah, he died last year. Yeah, The Lion King. What the hell, man? It's not a remake in my eyes, and obviously they've just come out with the sequel. When I heard that, I honestly thought they were doing The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, or at least The Lion King 1.5, Hakuna Matata, if you know, you know. And honestly, I was hoping it was Simba's Pride, because, hear me out, it's a hear me out cake moment. Kovu from The Lion King 2. As a child, I was like, if this guy was a human, I'd f*** him. But I'm not about bestiality. Don't take that the wrong way, please. But yeah, but no, it's actually, it's a prequel. It's technically a prequel to how Mufasa and Scar became brothers. I haven't watched it. Can't form my opinion. But the only thing I'll say is, what did you say to my brother? But it was on the same level as when everyone was critiquing that girl from Wicked when she goes, me and Bach, me and my brother, we deserve each other, me and my brother. I can't take it seriously. I'm sorry. If this does well, I might do a complete ranking of all the Disney live action remakes, if that is something you're interested in. But yeah, The Lion King, flop. That's all I can say. Flop. The next film that I'm gonna say, this film is not necessarily awful. I did enjoy it when I was younger, when it came out. But now that I'm looking at it as an adult and as in like a critic's like point of view, it does have its flaws, and that is Beauty and the Beast. I'm gonna get copyrighted. The first bone I have to pick is, why is some of the cast doing a French accent and the others don't? If I didn't know before that this film was set in France, I would have thought it was made somewhere in England, like in the Cotswolds or something. Is that a posh area? I don't know, Cambridge. I don't get it. I don't understand. If Disney, if you want to make a film where it's set in France and you want some of the actors to do French accents, don't half-ass it. Make all the actors do French accents. Hire people that are capable of doing a French accent, so you don't have to half-ass it. I will say, Emma Watson, she's not fluent in French. She has never claimed that she's fully fluent in French. But she did live in France up until like the age of 5. And she has done interviews in the past where she is speaking French and she has a really good French accent. So I know Emma Watson, she's more than capable. I'm not going to talk more on accents because I've already basically made a whole video on that. But that just kind of bugs me. I mean, it's not like a big flaw or anything, but I'm just saying, if I had it my way, I'd say, Emma Watson, French please. Another thing I will admit, the animation, like the CGI animation for the Beast was pretty good, but I don't know this for a fact, this is just my opinion and my little theory on this. I think most of the CGI budget went onto the Beast and not enough on the talking furniture. We're talking about talking furniture again. Just tell me why I could barely make out the faces of the talking furniture. On first watch, I didn't even think Lumiere or Cogsworth even had a face. That's why it was so hidden. I could definitely see it in like Mrs. Potts and Chip, but what about like the wardrobe, the piano? Like, where is your face? It's gotta have some kind of like humanizing qualities to it to make me believe it's a person enchanted into an inanimate object. Some of the faces are just really hard to read unless they are this close to you. Yeah, like I said, I understand they needed to make the characters have faces but also make it believable that they're objects, but you can easily like get away with it more with a 2D or even 3D full animated film. The last thing I must pick about this film is the music. Now, I really enjoy the music for most part of it, and I really like they incorporated new songs to the film, like Days in the Sun and Evermore. I will say, when I was in college, during my second year, I used to listen to Evermore from the Beauty and the Beast live action soundtrack on repeat to help me focus in lessons, because if I didn't, I would just run around the room annoying people. Like, that's how much that song slapped. But with that all said, some of the autotune is a bit excessive. I just kind of get around the autotune they use for some of the singing, and I'm sure Emma Watson has a very good singing voice. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been cast as Belle in Beauty and the Beast. She might not be like that good enough without some autotune, but it is quite overbearing, especially with her. For example, like the Belle Reprise song, it didn't feel like, because it was so auto-tuned, it didn't feel like it was coming out of her mouth. It just, in a way, it kind of felt like a music video, you know, where the music is like just on top of the video and you can't really like pick out if they're actually like singing it right there and there, if you know what, I don't know how to explain it. So yeah, it just kind of felt like a music video instead of a musical segment in a film. But yeah, those are the only things I can pick about it. I had to pick 3, and there was just a bit more to talk about with Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, Beauty and the Beast, really good in some areas, not very good in other areas. It was, like I said, it's not necessarily awful, but it is flawed in some areas. The last film that I'm going to talk about is The Little Mermaid. Before I say anything, I just want to iterate, like I've said throughout this whole film, I have no problem with the casting choices for this film, because I honestly really enjoyed Halle Bailey's performance in this film. I think she has a great voice for Ariel. I think she just hit it right on the money. She did really well. But the film, on a general, subpar. I think it was hard for Disney to create a CGI underwater film when just a year prior Avatar: The Way of Water was released. With The Little Mermaid, they used just a traditional green screen CGI technology, whereas in the Avatar film, they created brand new technology so the actors could be CGI'd but also work in water. Now, I know this probably would have been hard for Disney, because like most of the scenes are underwater and they're having to act and they're having to sing, so it might not have worked that well with The Little Mermaid, but obviously it worked for Avatar: The Way of Water. I think my main problem with the CGI was the hair. There's sometimes where the hair looks alright, and there's just scenes where I'm like, well, what is the hair doing? And I know they're trying to get it as close as possible to what hair looks like underwater, but I was just like, what the hell? What? I just can't get behind it. It's just a bit flat. The other thing I have to critique, and it's becoming a bit of a pattern, is the character design for the side characters. Because I don't think Disney can CGI animate side characters as well as their main characters. Like Sebastian and Flounder, I'm not going to get too much into it because I think I've already like explored the character design for some of these characters in these live action films, and you know, like the expressions on these characters' faces and how like it's completely different in the live action remake because it's supposed to be more realistic, blah blah blah. No one wants to hear me repeat that several times, so I'm not going to get into it. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I've conjured up a new diagnosis and it's called nostalgia syndrome, and I am fully diagnosing myself with nostalgia syndrome for this one specifically.
Oh wow. Oh, we just got diagnosed.
Yeah, I've just got such a deep connection with the original because my favourite films as a child were The Little Mermaid and Finding Nemo, especially Finding Nemo. I literally watch it every single day. My parents were done with me with that one. But literally any film that had to do with Under the Sea, Pirates of the Caribbean, any mermaid film, Finding Nemo, anything like that, that was like literally my bread and butter. I was just in love with the original. And yeah, so when it was announced that they were taking The Little Mermaid and doing a live action remake, I'm gonna say I wasn't too happy just because of my nostalgia syndrome for the original. Is literally just when they said we're doing a live action Little Mermaid, I was not excited for this. Yeah. Also, Skull was really annoying. I could not stand when that bird was on camera. Skull, you were just annoying. You were just annoying as f. And this is no hate towards the actress, Awkwafina, because I've definitely enjoyed other films that they've done. It was just annoying, I'm sorry. And I know that in the original Scuttle had some like annoying scenes, like in the scene where Ariel's trying to woo Eric, Scuttle tries to sing to help the romance kick in, and he's annoying as shit. But that was intentional. In the remake though, it's the entire film, and that's where I have a problem with. But yeah, the actors did great. It was just the animation and Scuttle. It sounds like I've got a hit list out for Scuttle. I just couldn't get behind this version of the character. Let's just say that. I couldn't get behind it. But yeah, that is my take on my 3 least favourite Disney live action remakes. So now that we've discussed why I think Disney are doing these live action remakes, why I think they don't work, my favourite live action remakes and my least favourite live action remakes, I am going to be discussing what I think Disney should do in the future instead of these remakes. Now, the first thing is, I think Disney just needs to find themselves again. I feel like they're just a bit stuck right now. I think they're just stuck with what to do with films coming on in the future. And I think part of it is they just need to have some more innovation. Which I know they can do because they've done it in the past. They've done like 2D hand-drawn animation. They've delved into 3D animation. They can do CGI live actions, maybe sometimes very well, sometimes not very well. So I think something new needs to come to the table if they really want to stand out against their competitors like they have done in the past. And now every time they remake a classic film, people are just disappointed that they won't just produce something new. They are still producing new things, which I do applaud them for. For example, they released a film named Wish, which they attempted a new animation style where it looked like moving paintings. But unfortunately it didn't go down well with reviewers because the animation style just looked a bit choppy and a bit flat and a bit unfinished. It was just a bit, they just said it was just a bit odd. But it still proves that Disney does still have innovation to try new things when it comes to their animated films and their live action films. So they can definitely do it. I bet there's loads of like aspirational animators or filmmakers out there that Disney can bring in that can produce new ideas, and maybe we just need to give Disney time for that. So if it means we have to wait a little bit more and continue with these live action remakes just to get something new at the end of that tunnel, I'm happy to wait. So I definitely want that kind of magic with my future children. If they want to keep doing live action remakes, maybe try and put it in a different perspective, a separate story. Like what they did with Maleficent and Cruella. They completely like changed up 101 Dalmatians and Sleeping Beauty to be in a different perspective, so we get additional plot to the original story. Like with those films, they're still taking an original concept from one of their classic movies, but switching it up to see the story in a different way instead of just copying and pasting. Like I said, with those films we can see how the antagonist either became the antagonist, or like Maleficent, change it so the antagonist has a good character arc and becomes a hero in the end, and has the opportunity to expand the universe and these fairy tales. Like, see some new angles. That's another take on what I think they should do in the future, if they are adamant that we need to get these live action remakes done. They did that with Alice in Wonderland as well, and like, it may not be like the most highest grossing live action film that Disney have done, but at least this shows their versatility. Now, this is going to be the last point. This might not be my place to say, but I really hope people understand this is coming out of best intentions. I completely agree that there needs to be more diverse representation in films, but I personally would love to see Disney come out with new films with new ideas, new original concepts, that can include a whole diverse cast from the beginning. Whether that's like people of color, Latinas, the Asian community, or any other like community that hasn't been explored enough through the film industry in the right way. They can truly create something that is enchanting but also educates the audience on these specific communities and inclusivity. Disney is completely capable of doing this. Like, look what they did with The Princess and the Frog. That was a fairy tale that they haven't used before. They switched it up so it's now set in 1920s New Orleans, and it showed what it was like to be a working person of color at that era, and maybe still now. And after that, I would say Tiana is one of the most strongest Disney princesses there are today, because she had the mental strength, this drive and the determination to succeed despite what world she was living in at that time. Yeah, she married a prince at the end and became a princess, but she still got what she always dreamed of from the very beginning. She didn't let that go. She got the restaurant of her very own, and to honor her father with this restaurant that they were planning to do together before he died. She never gave that up because she fell in love. She was like, yes, I am now a princess, slay, but I've also worked for what I've always dreamed of. And that's so much of a role model for little girls to look up to. You can have romance, you can have love, but you can also still have your other dreams and make them come true. That is so aspirational. I just really wish that Disney could create this kind of magic again. I really do. It's just a banger. That film is such a banger. And I love the songs in it, and it's like, going down the bayou, going down the bayou. So if they can do that with Princess and the Frog, they can easily do that with other fairy tales. I really hope that that came off the way I intended it to be. I just want more opportunities in this world for other people. I just wish there was just more opportunities out there for these things to happen. And with that, we have finished my commentary on why I think Disney should stop doing live action remakes. I really hope you enjoyed this. Again, this is just mostly my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. You know what, some people might like these live action remakes, and that's completely okay. Like, they're entitled to their opinion, I'm entitled to mine. Just because I don't like this strategy that Disney is going for doesn't mean other people don't like this strategy of doing live action remakes. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a comment down below, maybe give me some suggestions of what you want to see in the future. I'm more than happy to look at those. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, start a conversation in the comments. What do you think about all these live action remakes? If you want to follow my Instagram, it's at Abby Glancy, ABBEY GLANCY, or if you want to follow my makeup account, it's Glitz and Gore with 2 Z's. If you want to follow my TikTok, it's at Abby Glancy, ABBEY GLANCY. And more recently, I have also taken my other TikTok account out of retirement. If you didn't know, I have a TikTok account called Miss Slabby. I'm not going to get into why it's named that. I'd say with my Abby Glancy TikTok page, I post like my meant to be helpline series. It's more like serious content, whereas Miss Slabby, I just more like have a laugh with that. And it's also uncensored Miss Slabby as well, so you're gonna hear a lot of F-bombs. But yeah, if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. I'm gonna get copywritten. I don't care, this is just my opinion. That's the outro! Bye guys.